Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Today we're going to paint, I know I was going to do a landscape, but I had to get this one done too. This is a beautiful little mare, and it's kind of, well, I found this photo over here and on Adobe Stock, and it's kind of like a gray roan and a neat little foal that just born, newborn foal. And I really do like a little bit of bay. So that top one up there is called a bay roan, and I really like that. And I thought, well, this would be kind of fun. It's been, a couple months since we've painted a horse, and this would be kind of neat. We'll just do a real simplified background, maybe a distant little mountain, maybe some prairie right through here, but focus most of our energy in here. Now, this is a wood panel. It is 14 inches this way, 18 inches this way, and then I gave it a coat of the Heritage. Let's just show it here onto this one. The Heritage Canvas Prep Medium, and sanded it lightly with 180 grit sandpaper. One light coat, sanded it. This gives that nice tooth to it, that matte surface to it that I've showed you before in some of the quick videos about painting with acrylics and glazing colors and stuff, that I like to have that matte surface to work on, especially if I'm going to do this. I'm going to use what is called an Olaprima poster block type technique, and where I'm going to come in and just put in basically my basic tones, and then we'll come in with what we call half tones in on top of that, and some textures, and have a lot of fun. This is my basic palette that I like to use. This is my YouTube color palette that I like. Here is also some open medium that I have. The Matisse Deravan, fantastic company and what they put together and stuff. And since they manufacture, these are the Heritage MultiMedia acrylics, and Deravan manufactures these colors for us, for our company and stuff, so that everything is compatible. We know it's all compatible. And then this is the extender medium that I have here. This will give a nice working time for us, okay? So this listing of the colors and everything that I use is down below in the video description. Just click the video description. You'll see the links, and you can see where you can get these products and stuff in your area, okay? All right, let's get going. First, I think I'll do is just wash in some general color. Oh, and I also have it, those you can see. That's why I really love my big 42-inch monitor back there. And I put both of the horses that you see here up onto the monitor. And I'll put those in the those of you that subscribe to the channel and a membership. I'll put those photos along with a nice photo here of the line drawing that you can what we call a traceable or something like that you can help sketch that. Okay, all right. So let's get going on here. I'm going to take a larger brush, and I'm going to put in just a wash of color, and I want a soft blue violet. Oh, the one color that I did not put out is my white. So I'll put some white out here. That's not real great there. Let's just grab some of this white. Let's just stop that water from running here. And here we go. Nice light color here. And so I start out kind of with my colors a little bit loose and wash here, and then we'll do some other manipulation and stuff of it later on. And when I do this, you notice I don't mix it up real well, and that is because I want some of the atmosphere that comes in when you don't mix your colors up too much. There's a lot of artists that mix this to one color, and that's fine and that's great. And but I like to have a little bit of the atmosphere. Tap it around with my paper towel a bit here, and you can touch a little water if you want, or just wipe back like I do here, so that you don't lose your sketch here too much. In case we want to put her right in there, we'll do that. So nice. Let's go. And so you read up through here, you've got kind of a golden yellow, a little bit of green. Here's more of a brown. Let's just kick this over, kind of a brownish. I love the prairie colors that come from burnt sienna and green. Those of you that paint a lot with me know I love those colors. So we'll grab some of that. Let's get that bit more golden. Now you can, if you want working time, you can add some extender, but I want this to dry relatively quickly, so I am just going to add some water into this so it dries relatively quickly, and I'll just kind of smush this around. We have a lot, we'll show a lot here. I mean, we'll do that art thing all over this. So this kind of gets away from gets rid of some of the white of the canvas, is going to set in where our story is going to be here. And we'll maybe put a different heel. Now that's not really good where that stops right there at her mouth here. So let's take that up a little bit higher. You just don't, I don't like to have what we call a tangent line between anything that I see here and a breaking of the line, because that will extend the eye viewing that way, I mean, from horizontal instead of the vertical that I want to. See how that softens her, taking that up a little bit higher there. There's all kinds of little things that I have picked up along the way after painting for 40 years, and that's one of them that I thought was just like, wow, when I read that. I actually read that in a very old Dutch book called Grootshondenboek, which was the big book of secrets of the Dutch painters, the Dutch masters, that I was very fortunate to get a copy of. Okay, so I'm going to wipe back here, a little water on a paper towel. We'll take that back, and we're going to start blocking in. I really, I want to do that bay Roan over there. I love the colors on her, and I found her in almost the same position, so this is going to be good. I love the bay. I had a bay mare for years that I rode, and she was just wonderful. And so whenever I have an opportunity to paint one, and that head on her looks just like the horse that I had. So let's just go do that one. All right, so to do that, and a good, beautiful bay, almost like what I do when I paint like a buckskin or something. I like the burnt sienna and the greens, and basically little yellows and some whites in there. But these all make soft colors. Now, when I go to do something like this, what I like to do, because these are almost, if you want to gray it up more, you add just a touch of blue, and that grays it. See how that grays that? Okay. But I want to, it's a bay, so we want to keep it slightly to the orange. I don't want to use anything bright, and I want to keep the color a little lighter than what I'm actually reading on the photo. So you read something on the photo, I want to keep it a little lighter. Now, one of the things you can do, and I always tell my students this, is to put out a little reference. Now, I know I'm going to be probably not quite as bright, but you put that out there and you can hold that up there and see kind of where you are. Now, I know that will dry down a little darker, and I'm not quite as bright, so I'm going to step off to the side. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to step off to the side and add a little bit of more of my burnt sienna, which is going to brighten it, and a little bit more here, which is going to lighten it back up. So I want it. This helps my eye read it right here, see? And so I want it to be a little more orange and a little bit brighter, so it'll dry down a little darker. Now, if you want to save that, just touch in a little bit of extender, and that'll stay nice. I am a tone mixer. I like to mix tones, so it doesn't bother me if that dries. I'll just make it again, okay? But you can save it. So let's come right in through here. There's going to be a deeper shadow down her side of the face here. But let's drop in some of this color. We'll put that heavy mark down in there for her cheek. We'll try to keep a good reference to our drawing. Preserve our drawing as much as possible so that we don't get too lost. Now, that is, you can look over and you can see that's a little bit lighter. It's a little bit more orange, not quite as gray. We're going to let that dry down. When I'm painting on the tones, a lot of times, and I'm starting to find my way, I like to go lighter and slightly brighter, because then it is, when I go in with all of these other half tones and what we call broken color that you see me paint so many times, when I go in and I do that, it's going to be very easy to do it on top of that, especially if the color is lighter, okay? And this will make a nice base, because you'll pick up some of those tones. When you look at that other horse, you'll pick up some of those tones in that area. And so it's not really too bad to come up here and say, okay, right up in front of her ear, right here on this side, we'll pick up a little bit. And sometimes I'll just do this. This is called scumbling. I'll just scumble this tone through the area here. Even though she's not going to be all that color, I'm imparting a little bit of that tone into this area. And this will, and you know, as I go put in my other tones, you might see it every once in a while. So this is a good thing to do. Now I'm just going to take that and look for some other areas that I might see some of that tone. Now this one is drawn just a little different than this one, and I'm using this one. So I'll just blend the two together, or I'll paint basically the two horses together. So I'll see some of that tone, and I'll blur this out a bit. I might pick up a little bit. So out in through here, I'll scumble. So I set the tone. So this is setting the tone, and this is scumbling the tone, so that I'll pick up, especially if you're going to paint a roan. You know, the roan is going to have all kinds of colors here on her. Matter of fact, I might even just grab some of this other grayer tone while I'm here. We might just use some of that and set the tone and scumble it. This is just your first look. So, you know, we want to kind of get some of this tone in here. This is a good tone on her anyway. This has a little bit of that bay, a little light, but it's a good tone for that bay. And we're going to do maybe a touch of this. This will give you a beautiful harmony. We'll look down to where we can see some of this on the fold. Right down there. Where do you see it? Where do you see it? And maybe some of this right over here on the little guy's neck. Right here. Okay, and scumble it around a bit. Okay, scumble that around. There we go. And scumbling, like what you do here, I don't do that too much of the scumbling with you, but the scumbling is a great technique if you're going to go paint a roan anywhere. And I use it I used to use it, some of you asked me about painting Dutch pieces and stuff like that, the old Still Life Masters. I did those for 20 years in Dutch Masters and layers, the Flemish 7-layer technique, the dead layer, grisaille, penumbra, all of those layers. And scumbling is a layer that I did towards the end all the time, and it's what gives like a peach. It's real fuzzy texture and stuff. So there's just great techniques that are out there. All right, so I think I'm gonna use some of this grayer. I'll use a bit of it up. Then we'll change the tone a bit. We'll come in and put some of this right in here. And we got it right there. This is going to go lighter. So let's get some of that lighter tone. As a matter of fact, it's going to almost be what I have there. It's got to go grayer. So you got to look to your palette to like, where can you get grays? You can get grays from red and green. Those are beautiful kind of gray colors here. You like those up. See, that's just a beautiful gray. And it's real close, but you can get grays here also from blue, and this red will make beautiful grays as well. And she is actually, the gray that you see up there, probably a little bit more of this. So you get this gray. And, you know, when you go, and again, you can test this, right? And this is a little dark, so we'll lighten just a bit. Let's put this bluer one here, and let's just put this more red one here. Okay, and you can go up and look at that. So it's a little dark, so we'll lighten it up. But you can, both of these grays would work really good. Let's just lighten this up. See where we are if we lighten this up a bit more here. And see, I never destroy all of it. I don't like to, I like to leave some of that. Let's see where we are with that. Just a little bit more red. Even some of that, little bit more of that red would be good. And you don't have to be perfect, because we're going to make all of this perfect. Okay? But a little bit more of that red, that's better. That's a better, she's almost got a purpley cast in there. Do you see that? And so when you hold this gray up there, so like, look at right in there. Do you see kind of like that real violet color? See, that's real close to what you see on that one there. But she has almost a violet. And that's the one thing is, you know, when you put a color out like this and you hold it up, you know, that gives your eye something to relate it to. And then imagine the color wheel and working the color wheel. So when I look right up here, I see a little bit more violet in it. And that's one good reason, guys, that we should all study color theory so that we know how to get those colors. Color theory is the key. So let's add a little violet. Look at what the violet does here. Let's put a little bit of that violet-y color right up over there. And see, that's not quite as light, but that's getting color. That's getting that color right in there, that violet. And so if you want to make something like a beautiful, more violet green, all of this is going to work on this horse. As a matter of fact, we'll use all of this on the horse. So violet in the green over here. And look at the gray you'll make from that. That's just almost about what we're going to go here. And so I do these kind of analysis and stuff before I'm going to do a big painting, a big consignment painting. I find my way, and that's better. See, that's that color there. Do you see it? So we started here, and we ended up having just a little more violet, and that's it right there. That's the color. And so that's a good way to get it. But in broken color, when we go paint the horse, I'm going to use all of those. So I'll use my blue and my Naphthol Red Light, which is really blue in that Naphthol. That's a blue-green and a red-orange, and they're just about complements to each other, right? So it's all going to work. So let's just take some of this. We'll put it in heavy. This is all going to be Roan, so we'll kind of scumble a little bit. She has more of a round rump than I sketched here, so I'll round up her rump a little bit more. And we'll drop some of this down. Let's take this color. See, so that color is going to be really nice there. But let's put this in here where we get this big hip muscle here and the shadow that comes down through that. Let's just grab a little more violet and green right here. Drop this down. Maybe a little bit of that red and blue into that. A little bit more red. Whoops, too much here. And we'll drop this down. It's got to have that violet in that. It's carrying that violet. So even that deeper shadow, this red violet, might be kind of nice. Red violet in that green might be kind of nice. Let's just see what that looks like in there. And that's real close to that particular color. Where it's broken it, we'll break that up. Let's add a little warmth right up here as it comes to the front part of her hip, as this hip blends back into her barrel here. So we'll drop that in. But see, it's just, and I basically, this is what we call poster block. I'm kind of finding the tones. It's almost like a paint by number. Remember the old paint by numbers? Oh, my aunt, I remember my aunt, she used to love paint by numbers. And she did all these, and they looked pretty good, you know. But it's basically like putting in some paint by number as you're finding your way through this. So, you know, and that's a lot of fun. So we'll put some of this tone in here, and see, we'll gradually take this tone, more violet, right up over here. And I'm going to add a little extender. I add that just because I love the way extender slides on the surface. But I'm going to warm it up. Go up over here a bit. Warm that tone up just a bit. Yeah, that's a good one right in there. And as it heads to there, so you can see the difference between the warmer and the more violet tone. I could use a bit of that lighter violet right over here. Okay, and see, I'll come in and change some of this too, you know. I mean, when we do the broken color, this is just our good look at it, at the tones. And I keep my brushwork light and scumbly. I can scumble between these tones as I put them on, and really get a nice look as well. Let's drop down some of this violet. Grab a little bit darker. Almost that shadowy tone. We'll have a little light on it, but we'll go down in here. Okay, and then we'll go a little bit darker yet. Let's get a little blue and a little of that red. We'll get this darker gray. And let's just drop some of that down. It could go, it's close. It's very, very close, but it could go a little cooler. I'm going to add a little violet and green. Now see, rather than just always add blue and red together, I'm always thinking the different ways to make those grays. And so I already got a blue and red on the palette there. I want to get a shadow, so I should go always up to that red violet. But it's that blue and red, violet and green. It gives you this different tone. So as I go a little deeper, I just put a bit of this tone on. Let's just go a touch deeper, darker here, slightly different. Might as well, you see, and that's the way I love to paint, because when you start to paint when you're looking at it, and if you can avoid making this entire area one color, your paintings come out much, much, much prettier. So, getting all of these different tones in is really kind of nice. So we'll get that darker tone here. I'll look back and forth. I'm going to warm this just a touch, a bit of the bay color, the burnt sienna. Let's just push. That's a little too warm. Let's get a little blue and green into that. Just change it up a bit here. I went a little too far. There we go. That's better. Let's just drop some of that in. And again, this is your first look at what we call broken color. Whereas we paint this horse. This is the back shadow side on the back of her legs, down here to the fetlocks here, and we'll just add some of those. Let's look again. Let's look to the little guy here. Add a touch of this and this. So we got that in there. Let's see. We're going to have a nice shadow on this side of him. So we'll put that in. Let's drop a little bit. See, this will bring, wherever I can sneak some of this in, this will bring common colors between her and him. So you'll see right in here, maybe that's a little lighter, so we could do that. We could just grab a little of this gray, lighten this up a bit. Not a perfect mix, but a little bit lighter here. I could use a touch more burnt sienna in that. It's just a touch. Let me say this to you beginners. This is hard. This is hard to do this, because you got to see that subtling tones. But as you do this more and more, guys, your eye gets more and more attuned to the slight differences in tones, and it's these little differences that take your painting to the next level. So I got that whole shadow area in there a little dark, so I might come in and just take a touch of my lighter color. Should actually be a little bit more bay, which means a bit more of the burnt sienna. So I've got the gray Roan and the bay, which is the burnt sienna. That's the bay part of her, the bay Roan. But we'll get there. Let me go back over here to the bay, which is the burnt sienna and the green. Sometimes a little yellow into that. That's this beautiful bay color. So let's add a little extender to that. This will keep it wet here for a bit, even though I don't need it too much. Let's lighten up. So I'll lighten up a bit, but this time a little darker than what I had before. Okay, and we'll come in here. Let me show you. So we'll come in here. See, that's a beautiful tone. And so I'll take it and I'll express the tone so I get that look there, right? And now I want to take it. Now here you see kind of a definite line. And we can leave that, but you can smear it with your finger, which is one of my favorite things to do, just like that. See, and you take that tone in there like that. The other thing to do is lighten up your brush pressure here and scumble it. So let's scumble it a little bit as well. The scumbling gives you the Roan look, okay? It's going to give you that brush mark across the top, which is what we're going to be looking for. So we'll get this nice bay in here. Let's straighten up her shoulder a bit. Okay. Let's break that up because there's a real light right here on this one. This one you see the shadow. Lighting is just a touch different. But let's just add a touch more of that light, that gray, some of that violet. Let's add some of that right down through here. This now you see the difference. That looks like it's lighter when I'm putting that on. That will most likely dry to about the same color. So I'm going to want to see really a big difference of light when I put it on, because acrylics dry one value darker, about 10%. So that's a better color, see? If I'm looking for the light, that's a better color of the light. Let's put some of that right up here. That could be lighter. So, and see, I stop, I leave the mark, I'll leave it, because see, it's different, right? But I'll leave the mark, but I know it needs to be lighter, so I go back and break into the lightness of it, maybe a touch of the violet into it. I make a different tone. Now I'll lighten up my pressure on my brush, and I'll push that tone in. What I like to do, what you see me do all the time, is just break this up with my fingers. And I can do this because I work with paint that's non-toxic. If you're painting with oils and stuff, you should not touch your paints, and you should just use your brush. Just take a second brush and have it there that you can scumble with to break some of those planes. Now you can also add a little open medium here. I can go right in between. This is what I'm using, a little bit darker here, right up in here, and we can go ahead and put slightly lighter, but slightly lighter than what's there, but a little bit darker on that hip. Now look at all the tones that we're starting to work into her here, and that's what really works. Let's, so I have that. Now, see, this is the thing. So I have right now in my mind, I have this mixing structure when I'm making the Roan colors of the red and the blue, the green and the burnt sienna, that violet, the red violet and the quinacridone violet, and that green, sometimes that blue. And I'm making these lists of colors that are here. Now, I will change that around. That's what's going to be. But that structure is in my mind now of how I'm making these colors. What you don't want to do is stay rigid to it, because then your painting becomes stiff and all one color. Does that make sense? Okay. But I have the main mixing idea. Okay. So if I want to darken down, it means I'm going to get over here to the violets, the blues, the purples, right? The purpley color, maybe a little bit of the red into that, a little bit of the green into that here. And I get these darker, these real dark gray colors. They're pretty, and they're dark gray colors. And I can lighten that up and see where I'm at, and see I'm a little bit green, but not too bad. I would probably maybe shift it just a touch violet, and see that's a nice little gray color that might work down in here. Let's push that. And it's a little different than what I used over here. Do you see that? But close. It's a little different. I'm looking at this other kind of color right in there that's pretty darn close. So I might use it. Now, it's different. And so I'm going to use it. I'm going to put it on. And then to assist my look, I'll grab just a little bit of it here in some other areas. So I express it and then I move it. This is a good habit to get into. So I like that because it's a little different. And let's just add a little open medium to this. Okay, a little different. Grab a bit of this right in here. We'll put some more of the bay colors in here on her neck. But we want some of this tone. We want some of this tone to show up, maybe a touch darker. Okay, so these subtle differences. And you know, for the longest time as an artist, I painted too much with the same color, too long with the same color. And that's what made my paintings very boring, because it was just like all areas. Now, not that that's bad, but you know, when I'm going to paint something like her, she is this, I mean, that's just a beautiful modeling of tones. And it's a good lesson to show you guys. See that little bit of dark right there? Just a little spot of that. That's really kind of pretty. Let's put a little spot of that right down there. You know, it's really kind of pretty. Maybe use this to help accentuate her muscle here. We don't see it on one, but we do see it on the other. So I'll go right in between the two We'll accentuate that. We'll bring this shadow up just a bit. And let's put a touch of that deeper tone. Just a mark or two, not everywhere. Just a mark or two right in there. Maybe into this back leg, and we got to round up her rump here. This is going to be her whole rump, so we'll round that up and get that shadow mark in here. Maybe a touch of green into that. Get that, drop that shadow right up into here. That's going to be her tail up there. So you see that now. And so you can see, I'm looking at that area there, and you can see that same kind of shadow happening in here. But look at that bay color that comes in here. That's what I want to express in there. So I'll just leave that kind of greenish color in here. Let's go with a little bit of light and white and burnt sienna, maybe a touch of yellow. That's a beautiful bay color, brighter right in there, like where the light's going to hit her right in there. And then, so yeah, that's going to work. And I can put some other tones, poster block in, some other tones. But I see that tone. Let's go ahead and grab a little bit of that tone right up here. And maybe, so we'll touch that tone. See, that's a real pretty tone right up there with her. It could be whiter and maybe a little, if I want the colors to thin, which I want to do, thin because I'm going to work out into this other tone and I don't want to destroy it. So I add a little extender. That's nice and thin. Lighten the pressure and just scumble over it a bit so you don't destroy all the others. See, I just make this nice little crossing here. So if I got a hard edge right there, I take that thin color, light pressure, light pressure, just scumble over it here a bit, break it, maybe just touch it a little bit, and those colors just kind of soften out there. That's what I'm looking for. Let's drop that. And I'll pull, if I want the light to come in, I'll pull from the light here. If I want the bay to go out, I'll push out with the bay color. Does that make sense? Now let's enforce this shoulder here. We'll put a few colors on here onto this shoulder and watch your plane. So here, let's just grab some of this other good shoulder color. This is drying up a little bit here. So I can add some extender or a little water and do it, but I'll also make the color again here in a minute. But I'll pull that down for that shoulder. Use good calligraphy, good shape. Calligraphy, we always say that calligraphy, that's the movement of your brush. What shape is your brush pulling? And by pulling that, then I'm going to give the impression, especially when you're going through light and shadow, I'm going to give this the feeling of that shoulder. Let's get this lighter color. It was actually, as I went up there, it's a little more violet. So let's go over here towards our violet and let's work that for a minute and pull that shoulder down. Pull the feeling of that shoulder down from that neck down. It could be, let's change the tone slightly so I don't paint too long with too much of the same tone. Let's pull that other shoulder mark down. I'm looking at that one here. I'm a little bit too far forward because I want to keep that shoulder. But see, you see that mark there. That's that shoulder there. So I want to keep that shoulder. That's that big muscle there. And then we'll go right back up over here to our lighter. Let's just pull that across, scumble it a bit. And that'll give you the Roan look. See? So we'll scumble it a bit and get the Roan look. So you can see the colors and stuff here coming in on her. That's what we're doing. Okay? Let's get, let's fill in a little bit of that gray right in here. And again, see, this is still all wet here because I added a little extender. So all of that is wet. So I can just push that around. If it's not, just put the Roan color back in, that darker shadow. Let's go to that lighter, maybe a touch more of that purpley, just a little bit of blue into that here. Right in here, lighter. Let's get that light line that's going to be right up here by her neck there. And then we'll dance into some of these darker colors here. Scumble. Pull down, give the shape of the neck. Light pressure, scumble through. And if it's too much of a dry brush, what we call a dry brush, a dry brush. I also use the word that we use in the lab when we're making paints. It's called granulated. If it gets too dry, or what we call granulated, then I will add a little moisture to it. But let's use a bit of this, a little more violet, a little more green. Okay, let's reshape this front turning shoulder on the neck here. Okay, boom. Leave some of those marks. You can see as you work these tones, let's get this darker up over here. As you work these tones, don't touch it everywhere. Don't destroy everything. Marks, little touches. Now, what do? We have this color. We just put that color on here. Let's go over and see if we can find some place to establish that tone again back up over here. Maybe it helps us with that shadow on that hip there. Okay. Maybe some of that shows up right over here, which it could, which it does. So we help fill out her rump right over there. Maybe the line of the midline of her body here, we can help set that in. And yeah, and then you can go back and reset some of the lights up there if you want. Just scumble that down, and that'll bring them together. Does that make sense? Just scumble them down. Light pressure. Scrub almost. You can hear that. See? Just lighten the pressure like little butterfly wings hitting the surface there as you scumble out, and you'll get that broken tone look that we're looking for. But you can see there's a beautiful tone right in the middle up there that is right between here and here. And so that's all I got to do is I'll just take this tone and I'll just mix it up with this tone, a little bit of this tone, and I'll make one right in between. That's going to be the right in between tone. So I'll push some of that down, and then we'll go a little more gray, a little bit more violet right up here, and a little bit more of the bay color right down here. And it's by, and see, it's just by building these small little touches of tone, you're going to slowly paint that whole thing. So you can see we need a little deeper tone right in there. I think that's really pretty on her. This Roan has it. But we still need to deepen that shadow of that hip in there, and that's very much a violet green here. Violet, let's get that red violet into that. Violet green. I want this kind of thin, so I'm going to add some extender to it, which makes my color thinner. If I add this, it keeps it thick, and that shadow's going to have a lot of power. I don't want to have too much power. I want to lighten the pressure and just lightly move through and then lift off the pressure. I want to set that shadow of that big muscle that's right there, and then I want to move through and soften it out. Okay, so I don't don't destroy the roundness of the rump here. So I'll push that back, and then it's deeper, even actually a little more Roan here, right on the front part of that hip, which the other one doesn't have it, but I like the bay Roan, the shadow here, the deep shadow on that bay Roan. I like that, so I'm going to add that in there on that one. So now you see, as I start to refine these areas here, I will start, reading my tones a little bit closer, and I don't destroy everything I did earlier. I'll pull through that just a bit. See, that gives just a real nice look. Now, there's some softness I can use here. So what would you use to soften it? So I go in with what we call a halftone. I read this tone, and I read this tone here. So I'm right here. This is what I just put on. This is what I used earlier. So I'll go right between the two, and I'll make an area right here from where I am to what I had here, right between the two, making that tone. And then I know I can come down along that edge and just soften that tone right into that one. Just a couple marks. That's all it needs, see? And it softens that up and in. Okay, let's go more gray. So I'm here. Let's go more gray. I'll add just a touch of gray to that, and because I'm reading the gray up here, and I'll soften that right up there, that tone going right up there into that one. And it can go a little lighter, maybe a little bit more of that gray violet here. A little lighter though. So I'll go lighter, and we'll go right up here by the top, and we'll push that in. Lift the pressure, scumble it down just a bit so that you get some of that Roan look. And we can go a touch lighter here. Touch lighter. Okay. Push that in, right in there. And we'll pull down just slightly. Just like that. Okay. And so you can see that. Now, let's go ahead and round that down. We'll put a little bit because she has that on her barrel here as well. So we'll just pull down, rounding this, light little pressure, little scumbling. Just light, light, light pressure, guys. Just lightly touching it, and the paint should feel like it's grabbing the surface there. It doesn't, and you can, you know, if I get that surface too wet and I do this stroke, it will all just smooth a cloudy little look of a color. In other words, it'll glaze over the surface. So I try to keep the color. You can see this. See, my colors are fairly dry. Do you see that? Okay. And that's so that when I'm pulling this, and what you should be feeling, which is very important, is the colors grabbing the surface slightly. They should be just grabbing the surface slightly as you're pulling, okay? Now let's just go ahead, and we'll just go ahead and put this in right along her neckline here again, since we have some of that. And it right up in through here. And so I'm kind of painting the two horses into one here. Here we go. Here we go. And there, like that. And let's go that little bit lighter. And again, we'll hit the lightness on the top of the rump. This is where maybe I'll hit a touch more color this time, and then drag down light pressure. This is what the fusion, I'm painting with the fusion flat. This is a number, what is this one? This is an 8 fusion flat, and it is perfect for this. The fusion brushes are soft brushes, and they are perfect for these types of techniques in that they just lay on the paint so nice and soft there. Okay, so yeah, that's going good. Let's get that just a touch lighter, and we'll probably make it a touch lighter yet. And I can have, well, eventually towards the end, I'll have maybe a touch more texture in my colors as I get towards the end of the painting. But let's get some of the lightness to her rump here, right up in here where that's all hitting really nice. Okay, and we'll get some of that right up here on that front muscle. I do like a bit of that light hitting right up there. Mainly shadow on her, but I do like on this one a touch of the light. So I'm going to, because I feel that it brings the light forward. So I'm going to, again, paint the two. And I'll bring just a touch of that light forward. That's your call. You can, whether or not you do it, that's your call. And let's bring the light right up on the front of this shoulder line, right to her neck. That helps her bend her neck a little bit more here. And I destroyed some of that lighter, darker edge there, so I get to go put that back in here. So I'll do that. Putting that back in here. Pushing that right back, a little green, a little slightly different. We'll get some of that violet in there. And what I'm looking for is just a little bit different tone. That one's kind of pretty. It's right into those violets and stuff here. And I'll just lift the pressure a bit. But I want to give a calligraphy enough that it gives a power to that shoulder, if that makes sense. So the stroke, so the mark that I make, we call the stroke, the mark, is a little bit straight there. So I give that power to the shoulder. And then I can work this other one up into it. And again, if you're working an area and that dries on you, these tones dry on you, work smaller areas and work smaller bits. Well, let me put it this way. Some of you out there that are younger painters, we tend not to use a lot of paint. I use a lot of paint. So see, all my paints here are still wet. And that's because there's so much paint on the palette. And so that's what keeps it wet. But if you're using little bits of paint because you're afraid to use paint, I mean, look at how much we've painted on the horse and I've hardly used anything. But little bits of paint are going to dry faster and dry harder. So get some paint out there. And if you want, add some extender to it. But constantly feed your paint more paint and it'll stay nice for you. That's the big thing that I find with a lot of artists is they don't use enough paint. They don't get enough paint out, and they don't use enough paint as they're painting. So if I was to say one thing that will help you use your acrylics better, use paint. Get paint. Let's just fill in. See, I'll just fill in here down as we get to this tail with a little more of my color here as I put that in. Okay, and yeah, that's going to be good on her. Let's get this lighter. Let's get this lighter here and more of that bay color, a little bit of green into that. Let's get some of this color. You can see the gray that's going to go around her face. Let's just push in a bit of that here. Yeah, so her face, I have the face of this one, which is, this one's foreshortened a bit more than this one. That's starting to look dead on to us a little bit, but not quite. So, and I'm going to go down to a smaller brush. Here's my nice little 2 filbert. It's an old one. It's kind of flared out at the ends. I like this one. And let's come in there with a darker violet and green. Okay, and we'll just come in here and set that eye of her eye in there first. And I'll set just a mark of it over here, just to say we have a touch of it. And I always like to have that little burnt sienna in that eye as well, towards the back side back there, okay? And then we'll take a burnt sienna and some of this dark, right? And let's come in here and just lightly brush in a bit of the, and see this old brush just keeps the lines very soft. And the softness of this brush and the statement is going to make a better statement in the eyes here. We'll put some darkness into the nostril here, but it'll make a softer statement into the eyes here. And keep everything soft. If I make the eyes too perfect, she'll get very starey, and I don't want that. So let's go a bit more. I'm going to thin this out a bit with extender, a bit more burnt sienna. Let's keep this a softer expression down here. Soft little, just kind of sketchy here. Draw and sketch. Let's put some of that deeper mark for the neck. For the line here, right in there. I love when I go to my small brush because I use it, and it, you know, one of the things I kind of like think about as I'm doing this is I'm just basically redrawing or doing my drawing. Now, those of you that are young painters, just like the last, you know, when you paint birds or you paint anything with me, you can take a plastic and take a line of this painting so that you don't have to have a perfect drawing of it. I show you that in other lessons, taking plastic and doing that. If you're more towards a beginner, I always suggest you do that. I never suggest that. I always say you get a good transfer, a good traceable. Some people call it a traceable. We call it, in all the years I painted, a transfer. Get a good transfer. Let's get that light right up here. Oh, a little bit of that blue just makes a perfect little gray there as we start to shape her up there. We want to, you know, make sure we get that good shadow in there. So let's take that darker violet, maybe even towards the bay, just a little bit with a little more burnt sienna. That's just such a pretty color right there. and get that deeper shadow in on this side of her face, right up towards there. Scumble it. You see how I'm just using my brush here lightly and just scumbling. This is called scumbling it in there. And I like to do that anytime I'm painting something like a roan or something fuzzy like a peach or something like that. I love the scumbling technique. Let's get a little lighter, even a little bit gray here. And we'll push that lightness right up here on the top of her eye, that big eye socket that sits over on the horses here. There we go. And it'll come down this side here. So we got quite a bit of detail to do on that, but we're getting closer. Let's take a bit of that shadow and we'll push this right up in here. But we got to get that, I work back and forth to get that big bony area up above the eye socket here. Push that in. A little more gray. So like a little more green in that. See how that grays that up? A little gray, a little light. Around the eyes, on a bay and stuff, around the nose, nostrils and everything, you'll see more of a gray. Lower eye right in there. So we're going to want to have some more, we're going to want to have, not some more, we're going to want to have some gray coming in there. And we'll push a bit of this gray. Got a long ways to go on doing this on her because I really want to put a lot of these tones in on her and give her a real sweet face. So that's going to take some time here. Going to take a bit of time. There we go. To push some of that in. But we'll do it. We'll get it done. Here. There we go. Let's get that just as a pretty gray. Let's get that a little bit lighter. And we'll push a touch of that right in here. We figure the roundness of her nose, the squared off part of her nose. We'll push a bit of that in there. Okay. And again, move it. So maybe some of that could go right in here. You'll pick up some of that tone in some of these other areas. Move that as transitional. In portrait painting, we call them transitional halftones. They're transitioning. And maybe a bit of that, just even gray, but soft gray. Let's put a bit of that right in here. Right like that. Okay, so that's kind of a pretty color in there. So you can see that some of that working there. And there's a bit more of a bony dark. So let's go a bit back to our blue and violet. Maybe some of our burnt sienna into that. This is a nice deep, slightly different dark, right? Let's do a little bit of sketching. I'm looking up at my big monitor. I can really see her up on that. And we'll sketch in some of the muscle structure, the skeletal structure here on this, because she's big enough to do it. But we'll put it in just lightly for right now. That big eye socket and that big shadow that comes back behind there. So we'll push some of that in. We've got to round up some of this way, because if I don't round that up, this is going to make her nose look too long. So we have to get some of this further down and pull some of this down. Little scumbling here. Pushing down. Here we go. And yeah, a little bit more. I'm going to get a lot of tones in here, guys, because I'm going to really kind of detail her up a bit, which is what I want to do. And let's look that shadow up towards the ear here. So here we go. And I need to really kind of widen out this shadow again. So I don't take out everything I need. I'm just going to lightly here, just kind of pull scumble here over that and set that deeper shadow in there. Okay. And there's right up here, very important one, which helps set that socket of the eye, that eye socket there. So we'll push that in there, okay? Yeah, and that bit of the light, let's go back to the light for a second. A bit of the light back here on the back side of this nostril. Here. We're going to have to darken some of that nostril again. So let's just take some of that, push that dark back up in here. There we go. Get that back up there. There's a little bit of refinement we're going to have to do in here, but it's mostly what I consider sketching refinement. I sketch it. I'm doing very sketchy details. So, just like that. So, we'll do that here. And a little bit of dark here. There we go. It's getting also close time-wise. I only had an hour to do this one today because I got to go get my grandkids. So I'm going to have to break this into 2 pieces and I have to pick it up tomorrow. But we're getting the idea of how to get some of these colors in, and then we can come in and really refine some of these colors even more. Even with this small little 2 brush, you can come in here and do smaller little touches and start to fill in, but you can see some of the sketching that we want to do. And I want to, I got to get the dark mane in and stuff, and I got to redefine some of these lights and stuff in here, which will help break up her face a bit more. So we'll put in slightly lighter. There's that mark, and you see that bump there, that big bump there. It's on both of them and stuff. You have both of that. We'll come back in and add some of that, which is going to add a lot of details here to her face, which we want to do. There. Let's pull some of that right down here. And again, your calligraphy. So if I'm pulling sideways here, I'm pulling across the width of the nose there, and which is great. And we'll push a deeper little shadow right down in here several times. Some of this I'll do several times here. A bit more of that light. I'm even going to add a touch of the open medium here, just because it's a thicker consistency, and I can use a little bit of a mark of that light right there, like that. A little bit up over here. We'll thin down this, turn that face just a bit. So there'll be some more drawing and stuff that we're going to do, that we have to do, and I'll have to pick that up on the next video, which I'll have tomorrow morning. I'll come back in, and then we'll paint the next step of all of this, finish all this up and do some ground and everything like that. But this gives you an idea about how to use the scumbling, how to go in there with some of those halftones, and then we'll come in with some of the scumbling. Look at all the color I have going on in here right now. Just by we're getting close. We're not there yet, but we're getting close to getting some of those shapes in and stuff. And probably before I leave this today, I might want to just kind of fill in some of the legs here. Now, if you want to make this like a complete bay roan, like a dun that has the dun gene in it too, you can give the darker legs here. But yeah, that looks pretty good. Oh, I have a whole leg here that's back behind her tail that I didn't kind of put in. So let's put that in so I don't forget that tomorrow. That would be good, huh? Oh yeah, Dave, you made a 3-legged horse here. But we'll just scumble some of this in, and then I'll go get my grandkids. And tomorrow morning I'll finish this up real quick. And that's too much of a sharp line here. This has to curve down in here a bit more. I don't know why it came off like that. Curve down in there a little bit more. But we'll put the tail, we'll put some more stuff in, and we'll get going on this this Bay Roan, okay? Thanks very much for joining me. So tomorrow I'll have the next one up. Watch for that in part 2. Sorry I can't do it all in one right now, guys, but it's almost 5 o'clock and I got to go get the girls and stuff. So, you know, you have a great painting time. Enjoy this one, and we'll finish it up on tomorrow, okay? All right, thanks very much. Hey, don't forget to click subscribe and that you like the button, or hit that like button. That's very important. Those likes and stuff help us get the videos out there, guys. So thanks so much. That really does help us, okay? All right, we'll finish it up tomorrow. I'll see you there.